When you study Scripture, you find many examples of believers who dared to trust God so completely that they lived courageously. They dared to be faithful to God and live boldly for Him. Hi, I'm Chris Montgomery, Senior Pastor at Fraser Church. Welcome to Fraser 365. Thank you for joining us as we examine some of the most faithful and courageous heroes of Scripture. We hope this study challenges you to live boldly for Christ today.
Welcome to day 53 of Dare to Be. Today's title is A Purposeful Question. Rodney Cooper once wrote, "Jesus knew who touched him, but he did not want her to remain anonymous. Faith always requires confession. This would allow him to restore her to community as well." Our text for today is from Mark chapter 5, verses 30 through 32. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see who had done it. Christ knows all things. He knew that power had left his body. He was also fully aware of who touched him. Jesus never asks a question that he doesn't already know the answer to. His questions are always for the benefit of others. Thus, Jesus' question had a distinct purpose. He gives the woman an opportunity to take her faith public. R. Kent Hughes gives these profound considerations from Mark chapter 5. The poor woman did her best to escape attention, but she, like so many in her day, believed that sometimes the garments or even the shadow of the godly could bring healing. So as Jesus passed by, she momentarily closed her frail hand about the edge of his cloak or perhaps one of its 4 tassels. You can see Numbers chapter 15, verses 37 through 40 for more about that. In a vivid Technicolor moment which lives in her eternal memory, she felt healing course through her body, and she was whole. Without a word, Jesus' power completely healed her while she remained anonymous in the jostling throng. The same power which he used to make the sea instantly lie flat and to restore the raving demoniac healed her long-standing illness. Then the world stopped. Jesus realized that his healing power had gone forth. In fact, he willed it and began asking repeatedly, "Who touched my clothes?" Despite his disciples' remonstrances that he was surrounded by a pressing crowd. With his penetrating gaze, Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. How Jairus must have chafed at this interruption. Precious time was being wasted while the seconds of his little daughter's life were ticking away. "Come on, Jesus. My daughter's dying, and you're worried about someone touching you in this crowd?" Imagine the woman, her heart throbbing with joy and fear, her eyes tearing with emotion. Christ was calling her to stand before the throng, but not for his sake. It was for her, and for Jairus, and for some within the crowd, and for us. The woman's faith was at its core an ignorant faith. She sought a cure that was essentially magic secured, touching the edge of his robe. She had no idea that Jesus would know anything about what she did. Her faith was uninformed, presumptuous, and superstitious, but it was real, and Christ honored her imperfect faith. God still does the same thing today. Beginning faith is often uninformed and mixed with many errors. For example, Christ's person, the incarnation, the Trinity, the atonement, grace versus works, the scriptures, etc. However, such foggy understandings are often the beginning of a deep, informed trust in God. We can take courage in this. One does not need to have it all figured out to possess a faith which pleases God. This is why a child can come to Christ. This is why God often saves those who know virtually no theology. This does not minimize deep understanding, which is meant to foster a profound faith. The point is a faith that pleases God does not belong only to the informed elite. The woman's faith was not only ignorant, but selfish. She wanted health, but she did not especially care about the healer. This is so typical of beginning faith. We come to Him because of some problem. We reach out with a stumbling faith. He touches us, and we go on to love Him and trust Him with our lives. The drama here is beautifully instructive. Christ was jostled by the multitude. People were shoving and pushing Him as He attempted to go to Jairus' home, but He felt the touch of faith. As Augustine said, flesh presses, faith touches. In a sea of a million hands, Christ will see the one that is raised in faith, though it be infantile and imperfect. Are you sensing within you the stirrings of faith? By God's grace, exercise it. It will not go unnoticed by the Master. Some questions to consider. The Bible reveals that Jesus often answered a question with a question. What does this say about the use of questions as tools for discipleship? What does today's devotion teach you about God's grace and His expectations? And finally, what does Jesus' question teach about His power and the need for a faith that dares to go public? Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.